Of the Rockefeller family's many mansions, one has been completely forgotten by time, and maybe that's because this 100-room home wasn't quite what people expected from the first billionaires in the US. Hi everyone, Ken here. Hit that subscribe button and let's explore this house. In the summer of 1910, John D. Rockefeller Jr. stood on a granite bluff in Seal Harbor, Maine, looking out over the blue waters and pine-covered islands of Mount Desert. He had just made two of the biggest decisions of his life, to step back from the family's billion-dollar oil empire and to buy a summer home where he and his wife Abby could raise their growing family in peace. That moment, high above the harbor on a windswept ledge, marked a quiet turning point for a man who had spent his early adulthood in the long shadow of his powerful father. John D. Rockefeller Jr. was born into one of the wealthiest and most scrutinized families in American history. The only son of Standard Oil's infamous co-founder John D. Rockefeller Sr., he was raised to believe that wealth came with a responsibility, a duty even, to serve the greater good. Even though his father was one of the richest men in the world, John Jr. still had chores around the house, having to earn his allowance. He was studious, devout, and painfully shy, and he never quite shared his father's appetite for ruthless business dealings. Still, he dutifully stepped into the family enterprise after graduating from Brown University in 1897. His early career saw him on the boards of Standard Oil and U.S. Steel, but the work was not a calling, it was an obligation. After a media scandal and a public relations disaster surrounding labor unrest in Colorado, Jr., who was already uncomfortable with corporate life, saw an opportunity to get out for good. He resigned from his corporate positions, quietly and permanently turning his attention to philanthropy. He would go on to donate over $500 million during his lifetime, funding everything from medical research to national parks. But in 1910, he was still learning how to be his own man. But he would never have had the courage to change course had it not been for Abby Aldrich, who was his catalyst in many ways. Raised in Providence, Rhode Island, the daughter of powerful U.S. Senator Nelson Aldrich, Abby grew up in the glow of high society and political influence. But she wasn't content to be a society wife. She was intellectually curious, artistically inclined, and as forward-thinking as John Jr. was cautious. Abby had a mischievous sense of humor, a deep love of the arts, and an instinct for using her position to uplift the overlooked. When she married John in 1901, it was more than a union of fortune and politics, it was a partnership built on shared values of helping others and a sincere affection that never seemed to fade. Their life in New York was as expected, quite grand. John built them a 9-story mansion on West 54th Street where entire floors were devoted to each of their children. Their days were filled with meetings and missions, committees and causes, but by the end of the decade, John and Abby craved something quieter, something a little further away. They founded in Seal Harbor, a humble village on Mount Desert Island, not far from the social whirl of Bar Harbor, but worlds away in temperament. Here they bought a large summer cottage named the Eyrie, a 65-room Tudor revival home perched dramatically above the Atlantic. To most people, it would have already seemed palatial, but to the Rockefellers, it needed a little more space. They hired architect Duncan Candler to oversee an expansion, and within a few years, the house had grown to an even 100 rooms. Despite its size, the Eyrie was not built to impress, it was built to embrace. The interiors were warm, unpretentious, and filled with treasures collected from the couple's travels, things like Chinese rugs, Korean statues, and Japanese prints. Abby once wrote to her sister, playfully asking for more things from Korea to complete her little office room, a cozy space where their children could find cookies and a listening ear. Nearby, John had his own study, a place for prayer, allowance negotiations, and the occasional scolding. The house, for all its grandeur, was home. But what made the Eyrie so special wasn't just the architecture or the views, though those were certainly unforgettable. It was the way John and Abby lived here. Mornings began with hikes through the surrounding thousand-acre woods or horseback rides down bridle paths John had personally helped design. He believed in living simply, even when everything around him suggested otherwise. Still, their Seal Harbor estate was no small operation. In addition to the main house, the property included several outbuildings. And then of course there was the garden, a dreamscape created by Abby and the celebrated landscape architect Beatrix Ferrand. Inspired by their travels in Asia, the garden blended Eastern symbolism with local flora. Stone figures from Korea lined the spirit path. A serpentine wall made from tiles salvaged from the Forbidden City enclosed the grounds. When Abby passed away in 1948, John was devastated. He remarried quietly in 1951, but never quite recovered the sense of completeness he had with her. He died in 1960, and soon after, the Eyrie, now empty and oversized, was torn down by their children. Its upkeep was impractical, and the house had served its purpose. Their true legacy was rooted in the wooded paths and expansive gardens, which remain to this day. And with that, I'll turn it over to you. What did you think about the Eyrie? Would this type of lifestyle appeal to you, or would you swing for something more grand if money was no object? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments section, and while you're there, make sure you're subscribed so you never miss an exciting episode of this house.